They say free will makes us human, that the power to choose separates us from instincts. But if that is true, though, why do so many of our choices look predictable? Every ad, every trend, every opinion you thought were yours, someone tested it, optimized it, and fed it back to you. And you called it preference. Maybe free will isn't freedom, maybe it's comfort, a polite illusion that makes control feel consensual. We love the idea that we are the captains of our own ships. Nothing wrong with that. But we rarely question who built the ocean. You can stay anywhere you want as long as you stay inside the invisible border drawn by your upbringing, your habits, your fears, or your biology. That's not rebellion, that is range. We are not as free as we think. We are just allowed to pick between the options offered. Check it though. It's kind of like a child choosing between broccoli or carrots. It's still dinner, still rules, still no dessert. Because science has been quietly whispering this truth for years. If you think about it, neuroscience tells us decisions fire in the brain seconds before we are aware we made them. The body acts, the mind narrates, and somewhere in that lag, we crown ourselves deciders. It's humbling, really, if you think about it. We are not the authors of our thoughts. We are the editors who take credit after the story is written. But here's where it gets funny, though. Even in the universe is deterministic, even if every choice is just chemistry following code, right? We still feel like we are choosing, right? And that feeling keeps society running. We punish criminals because we assume they could have done better. We reward discipline because we believe it was optional. We build morality on the illusion of agency. Without it, accountability collapses. So maybe free will doesn't have to be real to be useful, right? It just has to be believable enough to keep us civil. That's why I call it a pleasant illusion. Because the opposite, total determinism, is terrifying. I won't lie to you. Because if everything is predetermined, then the tyrant, the victim, the saint, the addict, they are all just algorithms in different stages of malfunction. And if that is true, what's the point of striving, of guilt, of forgiveness, right? The illusion keeps meaning alive. And humans need meaning more than they need truth. But let's bring it home a little bit. Because philosophy is nice, but rent is due, emotions flare, and people still have to decide whether to stay, go, quit, or keep pushing. Because when a man says, I didn't have a choice, he's usually lying to himself. He had options. They were just painful, inconvenient, or unflattering. So he traded free will for comfort and called it fate. Just like that, right? We have all done it. We justify bad habits, bad relationship, bad jobs with words like had to, couldn't, and no other way. But deep down, you know better. We always had the options, just not courage. The illusion of free will might be pleasant, but the illusion of powerlessness is poisonous. One keeps you grounded in humility, the other keeps you stuck in denial. If you think about it though, free will might be a myth, but responsibility is real because even if the universe wrote the script, you still have to perform the lines. That's where discipline enters the chart, right? Discipline is the muscle that bends determinism, right? You cannot control every influence, but you can control how long you let it own you. You can't choose your impulses, but you can choose your response time, right? That's not full control, but it's enough to change direction. And maybe that's all the freedom we ever needed. Because free will doesn't have to be infinite to matter. It just has to exist in moments. Those tiny windows between reaction and reflection. That's where character lives, right? Not in what we think, but in what we choose after thinking. Because instinct says fight or flee. Free will says pause. And in that pause, humanity breathes. Religion calls it the soul. Science calls it consciousness. Philosophy calls it agency. But they're all describing the same miracle. The moment we realize we are aware enough to resist ourselves, you might not choose the thoughts that pops in your head, but you can choose whether to feed it or starve it. That is free will, or the closest we will ever get, right? The problem is we don't use freedom, we perform it. We think rebellion is buying what others can't afford. We confuse choice with consumption. We call it self-expression, but it's just another curated personality pack if you think about it. If you can predict your unique behavior through algorithms, how unique are you though? Really, how unique? Because Maybe the modern illusion of free will isn't cosmic, it's commercial. They sell you identity kits and you call it independence. The more data they gather, the less mysterious you become. And once you are predictable, you are programmable. They don't have to take your freedom, they just have to distract it, right? Because every notification is a leash disguised as an invitation. You are not making choices, you are reacting to systems designed to make you believe you are choosing. And that's the genius of the age we live in. Perfectly polite dictatorship of dopamine. But don't get it twisted though. There is still a way out. Not a full escape, but an awakening, right? You don't need to overthrow the system. You just have to stop performing for it, right? Free will begins when you stop outsourcing your identity, when your values are not algorithm approved, when your pace isn't dictated by panic, when you can say no, even to good things, just to protect your peace, right? That's not illusion. That is mastery, right? So is free will a pleasant illusion? Maybe, but it's the kind of illusion that gives life meaning, guilt its consequence, and efforts its dignity, right? Without it, we are just passengers on a cosmic conveyor belt, right? With it, we are flawed creators, fumbling, failing, and choosing anyway. And that choice, real or imagined, is what makes being human worth the confusion, right? Unless you really believe your next thought is yours. Do like, subscribe, and share.